Me too. I mean, yeah. They say it's the mold, but it's something. Because I can.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dave Crouch. This is the Public Affairs Roundtable, produced by the Williamson, Inc., affectionately known as the Williamson, Inc., what us older folks call the Chamber of Commerce. And we certainly appreciate the audience we've got with us this morning. Got an interesting discussion, I think, planned, and hope that you enjoy it. Our guest this morning, Mr. Craig Becker, who is the President and CEO of the Tennessee Hospital Association.
Thank you.
Mr. Don Webb, who's the CEO at Williamson Medical Center, and Julie Miller, who is the Chief Operating Officer at Williamson Medical Center. And we want to get into some of the current discussion. Obviously, the backdrop for this is some of the county commission discussions going over the past couple of months, and we want to talk about what's going on in the hospital industry in general, and then drill on down to how Williamson Medical is dealing with that and how that affects us here. But first of all, just want to get to know our guest here just a little bit. Craig, I understand you're a Williamson County resident.
Yes, I am.
How long have you been in Williamson County?
It would be 26 years now.
Good while, then.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen a lot of changes since I've been here.
That's good. Now, family?
Got a wife, Angela. I've married 36 years, 2 boys. Andrew, who is a school teacher actually in Davidson County, and son Jack, who is an engineer, a computer engineer right now, who works at a company called Availity here in Brentwood as well.
Right. Okay. Now, Mr. Don Webb, understand you've been here since 1985, Don?
Yes, sir, that's right. I came to the hospital, this building actually, in 1985 in the summer. We spent 1 year here before moving to the location over on the other side of town. I grew up in West Tennessee, around Dyersburg. That 32 years have gone by awfully quickly. It seems like only yesterday. Every time I come into this building, I can remember being here when I first started my career in Williamson County. I live in Williamson County, have lived here for a long time. I have a wife and 3 children. I have a daughter who has 2 twin boys. We love living in Williamson County, as everybody does, but like Craig, I've seen a lot of changes at the hospital, a lot of changes in the county, a lot of growth.
Just to be a little nosy, John, anybody that's been around you very much knows that you walk a little differently than most of us. Tell us about that.
So as I said, I grew up in West Tennessee in the early 50s. I was 4 years old and developed polio. And I lived, at those days, way out in the country and didn't really have a lot of access to health care. We did go to Memphis. We'd get in the car and we'd go to Memphis for some whatever reason or another. There was a small hospital. That hospital has closed and reopened more than once in that period of time. But it was interesting. I think what helped me to adapt to having a handicap was living in a small community. People around me, I knew everyone. Everyone had lived there for generations. I knew most of them as relatives, to be honest. So it was a very good support group, and I've made through that just fine. I don't think about it. That's been a long time ago. I've gotten used to it in 60 years, so it's been good.
Just always been a little curious about that, so I got a chance to ask. Julie, you and I have kind of known each other for a few years, but not really. And little bird told me that if we're talking about hospitals, that Julie can spice up the conversation a lot. Tell us about your background in healthcare and your family.
I have been with Williamson Medical Center since 2003. As Don said, we have seen Williamson County and the hospital grow since then. I grew up actually in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and have been in the Franklin, Nashville area since 2002. So this has become home for me. I am married and I have a 8.5-year-old daughter. If I didn't say 8.5, she would be very upset with me because half is very important at this age. So.
Yeah, the reason Julie and I know each other, just full disclosure here, is my sons have cut her grass for how many years?
It has been a while.
So
I've gone
starting-
through, all three of your sons have helped us with our
Starting with
grass.
Charlie, then Jack, and now Johnny. So
Yeah.
we, and I really didn't know what she did at the hospital. I knew she worked at the hospital, but then found out here recently that she's running the show in many cases over there. Mr. Craig, and I didn't get your background in the healthcare industry. How did you end up being president?
Well, it seemed like a normal path. I started out actually as a newspaper reporter and went into New York City, worked for the Wall Street Journal for a couple of years, and then from there I went down to back to New Jersey, worked where I was born and raised, and spent the first 38 years of my life. And I worked for the minority leader of the New Jersey Assembly, and he was a lobbyist. And then from there I went to Our Lady of Lourdes in Camden, New Jersey as chief development officer. I started a foundation there for the hospital. And if that wasn't enough, then I went from there to the New Jersey Hospital Association as their chief lobbyist, and then from there to the Maine Hospital Association as the state exec up there, and was there for 4 years before I came down here. And as my mother said, she really didn't think I could hold a job, but I think I've shown her now that after 26 years, I think probably I've made it.
That's great. Well, certainly a lot of what's going on with the hospital these days has to do with politics, so I'm glad we've got someone with such a rich background there. We've had discussions here recently about selling the hospital. Mr. Webb telling me before the show that when he came here, they were talking about it, and that's a subject that comes up periodically, so we're going to talk about it some today. And in addition, on top of that, you've got all the negotiations going on in Washington with Congress trying to decide what to do with the what's known as Obamacare, and then President Trump comes out with a budget proposal, I think, to cut Medicaid funding by $800 billion. So that's the 30,000-foot view. What's going to happen to health care, Don? Or not Don, I meant Craig. What's going to happen to health care?
Well, that's a very good question. I mean, a lot of it depends on what does come out of Congress in the next couple of months. Obviously, I think something will happen or not anything. I mean, it's really kind of up in the air right now. But I certainly, with the Senate side, I do not underestimate Leader McConnell being able to get a bill out of the Senate. If it comes through with the $800 billion worth of cuts, that's just kind of the beginning. I mean, we've really delved into this piece of legislation, and it gets down into things like public health, you name it. There are just so many different things that are going to be cut the way they're talking about. Now, a lot of it has been back-end loaded. It starts in 2025, which sounds like a long time away, but believe me or not, it'll be here before we know it. I think what it's going to mean is that you're going to have our biggest fear is certainly the people who are on Medicaid. We're concerned about them, that there's going to be cuts there, that it will impact particularly our rural hospitals. I really do have a lot of concern about that. Your bigger systems obviously are going to be able to survive. I think they'll make it without too much trouble. But the standalone rural hospitals are in trouble. Now, you know, and I'm certainly not putting Williamson County Hospital into that, Williamson Medical Center into that category, because I think you're well positioned here. It is a fairly affluent community. You have a great payer mix here, and obviously a well-run hospital as well. But and the other thing that has happened, I think that's been good, is that Williamson Medical Center has also reached out and has partnered with other facilities such as Vanderbilt. I mean, that certainly makes a big difference. Everybody's going to have to choose.
How so?
Everybody's going to have a partner to work with, whether it's clinical or financial. And I think it's very important, particularly for a hospital like Williamson Medical Center, which is financially sound, that it has a good clinical partner. And I think it certainly has one. Can't do much better actually than Vanderbilt. It's very, very good. So, you know, all in all, my main concern is that freestanding rural hospital, and plus some of them. I mean, you just go down the road to Murray County, and again, the main campus will do fine, I'm pretty sure, because they're going to need it. But when you start talking about the hospitals in Lewiston, Hohenwald, Wayne, those hospitals that they are working with, they're going to be very stressed, and it's going to be up to the main campus to keep those hospitals alive.
Now, what's really causing the stress, though? Drill it down.
It's a couple things, in my opinion, anyway. I think a lot of it is, one, in this state, we did not expand Medicaid. Now, you know, people may at this point argue that that was a good thing, considering that probably Congress is at least looking at getting rid of it. But I think it's probably not going to happen for at least, it looks like it's not going to happen for another 10 years. It won't be totally done. But anyway, we didn't expand, so our uncompensated care went way up. We give out, and this is cost now, not charges, this is cost, actual cost. We give out about $1 billion worth of free care every year. And because of that, you know, the larger facilities, again, particularly the ones like Williamson County, have a better payer mix. They can cover those losses, but you get into some of these small and rural community hospitals where they may have 70 or 80% as Medicaid, or it could even be higher in terms of your uncompensated care, that they just have no way to be able to cover those. So for those small and rural hospitals out there, I really do have a lot of fear. Now, having said that, too, I mean, there's going to be still stressors on the safety net hospitals like a Vanderbilt. They're obviously making a lot of changes to how they provide the care, and certainly watching what they do with their expenses, but it will be stressors on them. Metro General, get out to the Med out in Memphis, Erlanger possibly still be in good shape because, again, the payer mix is good for them. So it all depends on really your geographic location and whether or not you have a lot of uncompensated care, because we do have a lot of people who are uninsured in this state. Who are the working poor. I mean, they all work. A lot of them are working, but they just have no insurance coverage.
Okay. Don, Craig brought up the partnership with Vanderbilt, and tell us what's in it for Vanderbilt, what's in it for Williamson Medical Center to have a partner like Vanderbilt. How does that benefit us? How does it benefit them?
We have several relationships with Vanderbilt. Some of them, as Craig says, are clinical, and some of them are financial generally. I think it benefits Vanderbilt because it gives them an opportunity to work in a community hospital setting. We have physicians in training come through Williamson Medical Center who want to work in that setting. That's helpful to us, obviously. We have a partnership with them, a joint venture company that has walk-in clinics around Williamson County. We have 4 that are open now and 1 more under development in Nolensville, and we're always looking at other locations for that. The Children's Hospital was a partnership with Vanderbilt. The use of the Monroe Carroll name was a partnership with Vanderbilt and the Monroe Carroll family, but we also have the the use of Vanderbilt pediatricians and their ER and hospitalists to staff that ER for us and our hospital unit. We have the partnership with Vandy. We're an affiliate hospital, as are 4 or 5 other hospitals around Nashville, and we participate in their network development that's been going on now for about 6 years, and I think that's getting ready to really make some large headways in somehow tying these hospitals to a tertiary care facility so that they have a place to send patients who need that level of care, but also that we do that in a way that is common to all of those hospitals, so that everyone is being treated in the same way, under the same protocols, those sorts of things. So clinically, it's very good for Williamson Medical Center. Financially, it's been good for Williamson Medical Center. It brings some stability to the hospital. We don't really do anything on hospital campus with Vanderbilt other than we employ Vanderbilt physicians in the children's ER. But we have a couple of other relationships that are smaller with them, and all of those work well, I think, and I think Craig is correct. we want to stand alone, we want to stay independent. That doesn't mean that we are averse to having relationships with other facilities in and around Nashville. So.
Julie, anything operationally you can share with us about that partnership that affects your...
Like Don said, I mean, a lot of our relationships are specifically outpatient, so it gives us the ability, along with Vanderbilt, to expand our footprint out in Williamson County. So the walk-in clinics have been a great way to do that. It gives the community, our patients, an ability, easier access closer to their home, and then if they need something additional, then they can come to the hospital. So that it gives us the better ability to kind of reach out and expand our footprint together.
Okay. Now, to kind of close the loop on that, you said, Craig, that kind of I guess the common denominator between the successful hospitals and the one that are under stress is the uncompensated care. So being a fairly well set community financially, does that mean our hospital is probably not going to have that kind of issues?
I don't think so. I mean, if you take a look, it's hard to imagine that you're going to see that much of an increase in uncompensated care here. You know, of course, who knows? I mean, when all's said and done, what Congress ends up doing, who knows what's going to happen. But I think we have to stay tuned. I think, again, Williamson Medical Center, though, is well positioned to stay at least independent as long as it wants to. And kind of my mantra on this has always been that this is up to the community to decide make these kind of decisions, not outside forces. It should be the community, and I think it's one of the reasons why you have trustees, a board of trustees, who really recognize that Williamson Medical Center is a very important part. It's a part of the social fabric of the community, much as your schools, your post offices, and everything else. And so, they really hold those kind of things dear, and they're certainly, that board is not going to make a decision that's going to be adverse to, I don't think it would be adverse to the community at all.
Right. Don, when we were talking the other day about doing this show, one thing that I'm watching in my industry is the managed care movement. And I think that's a pretty, it's probably a lot further down the path than I thought it was when I heard that United Healthcare had bought Surgical Care Affiliates. So you've got a major insurance company now that's bought a major hospital or healthcare provider, kind of bypassing the traditional insurance hospital relationship there. Do you think is that going to change the way we do things here? Is that already changing things?
I don't think that particular transaction would have much impact on Williamson Medical Center, but yeah, you're right. The insurance companies are looking for ways to stabilize their industry a little bit, and if they're involved to that degree with surgery centers or imaging centers or hospitals, maybe the opportunity for them is to buy into those hospitals or own the source of that care as opposed to just paying for that care. Williamson Medical Center, I think we've talked a little about this morning, is in a good position financially right now, and we're in a good area for that as well. We have uncompensated care, however. It's several $1 million annually. We have patients in this community who are on Medicaid. It's not at the numbers that Craig was talking about in some of the rural areas, but we do see patients in this community who are in both of those situations. We also draw patients from other communities, and so patients are looking for places to access care. Whether they're in Williamson County or the surrounding counties, they're looking for that. And we're open to all comers. We see our share from Williamson County, but we see some patients from outside the county. So we're concerned a little about the rural hospitals, as Craig is, because it's all part of that network of hospitals across the state of Tennessee. I don't want to see any of those hospitals fail. They all have value within their community, and they have value within the healthcare system. Uncompensated care, managed care, lower reimbursements, whatever you want to call it, is what drives a lot of that too. Healthcare is expensive. Everyone knows it's expensive. The insurance companies want to pay as little as possible for the care that their patients receive. We understand that, but there's a limit to what can be done sometimes under the reimbursement models that people are proposing. So insurance companies are struggling a little bit. Healthcare is struggling a little bit. It's always evolving. It's always changing. But we have weathered the storm, and I don't see that changing. We'll be here for the foreseeable future as long as anyone wants the hospital to be here. And I hope we stay independent too. I don't think that's in anyone's interest to sell the hospital, but that's just my opinion.
We'll circle back around and talk about that here in just a minute. One other thing, Craig, do you have any more to share on the managed care movement? Is that changing the economics from a big picture point of view?
Well, I think managed care has been around for a long time, and most people have adapted to it at this point. I think the more importantly, what we're seeing, I think, increasingly now is really a partnership between the insurers, the payers, and the providers. I mean, we are trying to coordinate care between each other. We're trying to give it the best care that the patient should get. We're working now with the state. Tennessee Hospital Association is working with the state to provide the state and its payers, its insurers, that immediate access to when a patient is admitted to the hospital. And that way they can get their patient care medical home going. They can make sure that the patient has appropriate care once they leave the acute care setting. So I see it more developing now into a partnership. And it's been a long time coming. Managed care has been around since the 80s. And I can tell you, when it started, I was around then, and it was not a happy time for providers or for the HMOs. But I think we've now matured enough where we can all get along, and we all are now focused on what's best for the patient.
Right. Well, it goes back to a presentation I saw probably 25 years ago at a J.C. Bradford conference where a fellow by the name of Richard Scrushy was trying to. He's probably out of prison now.
He's out of jail now, yeah.
Okay, but he was a crook, so people weren't going to pay much attention to him. But his thesis was, as the CEO at Health South Rehab, he was going to cut a deal with the city of Tampa to provide health care directly to the employees of the city of Tampa without an insurance company in the middle. And I thought it was a brilliant plan, but now the insurance companies are kind of turning that on its heel and coming in and buying the healthcare providers, which seems like it could have the possibility of upsetting the apple cart again.
Well, I guess from my perspective, again, we tend not to do insurance well. Insurance does not do patient care very well either, for various reasons. The only ones that can seem to be able to do it are like Kaiser, Geisinger, some of the other big systems, but they've been at it for 50 or 100 years, you know. So it's not something you flip a switch and you get into it either way.
Yeah, exactly. Let's drill down into Williamson Medical Center specifically on some of these things. I guess the assumption I'm making, and let's make sure it's a valid assumption, but is that the things that, well, first of all, Williamson Medical provides a lot of things to the county that the county is not paying for, I understand. Is that right, Don, Julie?
So Williamson Medical Center does partner with a lot of various county entities. We partner with the schools. We partner with the county regarding operating EMS. We also partner with fire. A couple ways that we do that with the school system, our EMS personnel go out and teach 3 first responder classes to high school students, 2 at Page and 1 at Fairview. And when you look at the hours from our EMS personnel, it's about 120 hours of their time that we are providing to the school system so those high school students can have those classes. EMS has a very big presence at all high school football games, wrestling events, and with fire, we help with the volunteer firefighters. We go out and we provide all education and oversight for their emergency responder program. And that's about 520 hours a year of oversight that we provide to them. We also teach 3 first responder courses, so those volunteer firefighters can then go back and become certified and take that certification class. Through the county, as I said, we do operate EMS for the county. The county does give us a monetary contribution towards that operating of EMS, but it does not cover it fully, and so Williamson Medical Center covers any losses that might be. When you look at the number of EMS that are out on every day, on the busy top part of the day, we have 12 ambulances out on the roads. We have 10 stations, a supervisor that covers every shift. So we also work with the county and contribute to the forensic services and help provide that for the county. We also provide a discounted service to jail inmates that last fiscal year added up to $311,000. So there's various ways that we really try to work with all agencies throughout the county and provide services as there is a need and when someone comes and asks us.
Now, if you were a for-profit hospital, how much of that would you be doing?
You know, that's hard to say. For-profits they look at their bottom line a lot more than we do. They have to answer to their shareholders, whereas we don't. All of our money goes back into our hospital. It goes back into the facility. It goes back to the community in some manner. So this is one way that we can do that. When you have shareholders that are looking for that dollar, it changes how they view things.
Okay. Craig, in your experience, big difference there between what a for-profit hospital provides for a county versus a county-owned?
Well, full disclosure, I have investor-owned hospitals that are members of ours, and you know, if you look at it, they give out as much, and in some cases more, in uncompensated care than you know, other hospitals do. So, and they do other things like this, but it's just a different approach. That's all to healthcare. I mean, it usually. Dr. Frist, the old Dr. Frist, is the one that told me when I first came here. He says, you know, if you take care of the patient, the money will follow, kind of thing. And I think some hospitals, particularly like HCA, the one I'm talking about, is one that seems to be that way. Again, you know, I think both for-profit and not-for-profits provide care, and they try to do it in the best manner, which is best for the patient. It does make a difference, though, I can tell you, when you sell a hospital, whether it's for-profit or not-for-profit, that there is an expectation of an ROI on that. I mean, it just is.
Sure.
So
my assumption, again, I never got it out a minute ago, is that the departments that make money would probably exist in a for-profit situation, and the ones that don't make money are the ones that might be under review in a for-profit situation. What do we make money on, Julie or Don? What don't we make money on?
It's really difficult to look at specific service lines and decide or determine whether or not they're profitable or unprofitable. Everything is so integrated within the hospital, that's just hard to do. The nursing units, for example, second floor, third floor, fourth floor, those units, they're all dependent on all of the other units in the hospital. Those units in the hospital are dependent on the nursing unit, so it's so interdependent. But I just generally, things like surgery, things like imaging, x-rays, those sorts of things, The sorts of things that you see that are freestanding everywhere, those are the things that you can do in a freestanding environment, and you can earn money, make money off of those services in a freestanding environment. Outside of the hospital, that's a little easier to define and easier to see. It's difficult inside the hospital. The hospital overall is profitable. That's a result of all of those departments contributing in some way to those revenue streams, but also contributing in other ways to supporting the hospitals that do produce the larger revenue streams. So it's very much a consolidated effort at a hospital.
You can't just carve it up and...
You can't. You can't.
So the things that you see freestanding, like the outpatient surgery centers, things like that, obviously those are profitable because they're all, I think, privately, most of them are privately owned. And that business that has actually moved away from all hospitals, is that not right? And
so most of them have some connection to a hospital somewhere, just because they may have an issue with a patient in that center and have to transfer. So there's those sorts of agreements exist.
Right.
But they can operate in a freestanding environment and not necessarily depend on a hospital. And they're profitable. There are different degrees of profitability, I'm sure, but they're profitable in the sense that they have they're able to control that cost. They have a definite cost that's associated with the service they provide. They're convenient. There are a lot of reasons that people go into that, and money isn't necessarily the only one, but it is a service that you could say is profitable. Same with the imaging, same sort of.
Yeah, I would just add that, you know, generally when you look at these, particularly the ones that are privately owned, and this is all due respect to our physician friends out there, is that they tend not to take uncompensated care, and they tend not to take Medicaid, and they don't run a 24/7 emergency room. They don't have medical teaching, you know, all the other things that a hospital has to have to run. Right. And so, sure, they can do it cheaper. They can do it more efficient. But it's a real balance here, because I know there's a consumer demand that they want that convenience, that efficiency. But, you know, somehow that when you start taking off the paying customer out of the hospital, who is basically covering the patient who can't pay, right, then you start down a real dangerous path, and it's certainly one that's worrisome to me as well.
Julie, what? How do you see the hospital adapting to all these changes, like the outpatient surgery? Are you doing anything differently? Is that a concern, or what are your concerns?
Well, absolutely. Like we've all been saying, it is a concern when you see some of these outside groups coming in and pulling those patients away that would normally come in through your facility. But as an organization, and I think if you look back, you can see Williamson Medical Center continues to assess the community and the needs of the community, and we've continued to do that. Early in the 98, 99, we realized that we needed additional beds, and so we added on to the facility and added 2 additional floors. We expanded ER to give the community and our patients the space that they needed. In 2000, we expanded our NICU and changed the acuity to a level 2B because the moms kept on telling us, we want the babies to stay here with us. So a high-risk baby that was just born could stay in our facility with their mother. So it gave us the ability to keep the moms and the babies together. Just 2 years ago, we just finished a large expansion project because we've been listening to the community and pediatricians that we needed children's services here. So we added the West Tower, and we have the pediatric ER and inpatient unit, and expanded our surgery. So we continue to look at the needs. We listen to the community for pediatrics, we had focus groups where we had parents and moms come in and tell us what they would want a pediatric unit to look like and what the needs were, because we really want to be able to keep those families here, and we try to do that watching and being fiscally responsible, but we also want to make sure that we grow as the community grows.
Right. I actually meant to touch on this earlier, and so we may be rehashing something we've already discussed a little bit, but of course healthcare in Williamson County in general is a big employer, not just with the hospital, which y'all have how many employees?
A little over 1,400.
So pretty good workforce. But with community health systems, all the other hospital organizations here in the county, it's an important industry overall to us. But community health systems has had some well-publicized issues lately. Are they tied into the things we've been talking about, or are they different? Are they, I'm probably getting nosy here, but who wants to answer that?
You want me to take a run at that?
Yeah, take a run at it.
I think they grew too far too fast, and they took over some companies that were not operating to peak efficiency, to say the least. And one thing I've learned is culture will eat anything faster for lunch than just about anything. And trying to bring like 3 or 4 different companies' cultures into the CHS culture, I think just got to be a daunting task. But I think the big thing was just they grew too fast, just way too fast, and they had some companies that probably shouldn't have. And now you're starting to see them sell off. And plus, the other thing that I've said all along is that if you're so underwater with debt in this day and age, then you're going to have some problems. And obviously, CHS has.
Right.
So let me make a comment about CHS, and I agree with Craig that they bought this company a few years ago, and it was all about growth, and there were a lot of hospitals that were struggling with that, and that was a large part of that. But it's taking on the debt for that, as Craig mentions. It's taking on hospitals that have a different culture. In their case, they're spread out across the country. That's very difficult to do under the best of circumstances. I don't know. I think they are selling a lot of hospitals. I see a lot of activity in the publications and magazines that come across my desk.
Right.
But I don't know where they are in that process.
Right.
They are a large employer in Williamson County. They're a very successful company. I mean, this. I think they'll get through this issue, and they will be a very good company coming out the other side. And when they make some of these changes, we have one hospital to worry about, and so Craig, the culture is big there. We try to foster a culture of friendliness and local service, those sorts of things. So I don't know how to deal with something on a scale that they're doing at CHS.
Well,
thankfully I don't have to.
Again, to circle back, the discussion is, is the hospital a good investment for the county? Is the hospital a good business for the county to be in, or is it a good business for the county to own? And I'm just trying to, from a layperson point of view, all this collage of news we're bombarded with every day about healthcare and about CHS and about Washington. It's a confusing amount of information to deal with, and I'm just trying to help us understand how Williamson Medical fits into all that, and certainly not wanting to beat up on CHS or anybody else, because we certainly want them to succeed as a business community, but it's helpful to understand the challenges that you all and they are dealing with.
Well, you need to take a look at how Williamson has, frankly, has positioned itself. I mean, getting a partner with a larger institution like Vanderbilt is very smart. Providing the services that they do, which is what the community wants, particularly, you know, as I said, I've been here 26 years and I've seen where it's gone, where Williamson has gone from basically a community hospital providing basic care to one now that provides a whole lot of different things that the community wants. And so, and watching expenses and, you know, keeping your medical staff happy, which I can tell you is a full-time job. No, it's beyond a full-time job for people like Don and Julie, having worked in a hospital.
Doctors don't have opinions, do they?
Oh my goodness! If you've seen, you know, like we've always said, if you have 100 doctors in a room and you take a vote and it's 99-1, then it's a no vote. So you know, it's kind of you just have to live with it and you work it. And again, I think Williamson has done a great job on that. So they're well positioned to survive going into thrive going into the future.
Well, I've certainly enjoyed asking the questions so far. I suspect there's some I haven't asked yet that our audience would like to ask. If you have any comments, it is time now to open it up to questions from the audience. And if you've got any comments about the hospital or questions about the hospital, we'd love to hear them at this time. So step up to the mic and identify yourself. And
good morning. I'm J. Edward Campbell. I live in East Franklin, Williamson County. I expressed this to the CEO earlier, and I want to express again. Last year in August, I went to Physicians Urgent Care across the street thinking I had the flu, and they did some tests, and after several days, I was admitted to the Williamson Medical Center with full-blown salmonella poisoning from a restaurant here in Franklin. I want all of you to know that I received excellent care. The doctors, the staff, everybody. I like to tell people I didn't know I was sick, didn't know I was as sick as I was. They assured me I was sicker than I thought I was, and they did an awesome job of taking care of me. So I want to thank you and Williamson Medical for everything you do every day for this county and the residents of our community.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very good.
So, thank you, guys. No one really likes to say they have a hospital of choice. I'm sorry, Mindy Tate,
there you go.
resident of Franklin. No one likes to say they have a hospital of choice, but Williamson Medical Center is my hospital of choice, and my physicians are associated with your hospital, and appreciate that. We've talked a lot about the past and moving out to the campus by the interstate several years ago. You have a large tract of land there, and the development of the Children's Hospital recently was a great thing. What's next on the campus? Do you have room to grow there? While there are many changing facets of healthcare industry, what's next for Williamson Medical Center on that campus?
So, yes, we do have some room to expand. I think there's probably about 40 acres right now that's available and would be good to do something with. I can tell you that I don't necessarily have plans to build anything on that right now. We're looking at possibly a medical office building that would house physicians, obviously. We're looking and in development on an expansion of our women's services. The number of babies born at Williamson have increased pretty dramatically in the last 5 or 6 years. We expect that to continue with the number of people that are moving into the area. We're looking at enhancing our cancer treatment services, oncology. We're partnering with a group across the other side of Carruthers from us who are building a proton therapy center, for those of you who may have heard of this. We're going to lease some space over there, and we're going to provide some imaging and some other things in support of that campus. That should be coming out of the ground in the next few months and open sometime next year, the medical office building. There's some other tenants going into that space too. So women's services, oncology, we continue to add primary care doctors. I think in the last 18 months or so, we've added a total of about 14 doctors, most of which were primary care doctors. There's a real need for primary care in Williamson County. We hear from the community that they're having a difficult time, if they're new to the community, finding a doctor, getting an appointment, getting on someone's schedule. So We're looking at that closely and adding positions. Most of those are going in offices away from the campus. We do have a medical office building in Thompson Station. We have one in Grassland Community that have positions located there. Both of those are available to expand and add more doctors, and we're looking at doing that. So there's several things going on, nothing specific as to a building on campus right this minute, but that's probably coming too.
Okay. Morning, sir.
Hello, my name is Mark Gilchrist. I'm from Mercy Community Healthcare. We are nonprofit healthcare in Williamson County. We service over 5 counties, Hickman County, Murray County, and other surrounding counties. What we have seen an increase is we see 33% of our patients are uninsured or have Medicaid. A lot of providers in our community, when they go see a subspecialist, does not take Medicaid. So we heavily rely on Williamson Medical Center to help provide those special services. And we have been very successful in meeting those needs. So, you know, we want to encourage the community that we need more providers that does cover services for uninsured, because those individuals, if they cannot get the care they need from who doesn't take Medicaid, they are going to the emergency room, which costs, you know, ridiculous amount for a simple illness. So we are very thankful for that, and we hope that you continue to be here and service the community, because we definitely need you in our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just add, if I can, I know Mercy very well. In fact, their executive director used to work with us. But in any event, they just do a wonderful thing here, and it's more of that community service in the community and working with the hospitals in particular. I mean, we're going to see a lot more of that, I think, in the future, and it's one of those safety nets that I do fear for going forward. So we have to be very careful about how we design this healthcare system of the future.
Interesting. Mr. Gary, you were getting up a minute ago.
I'm Gary Buchanan, and I guess all of you know Tom Lawrence. He talks about curveballs. And I have a curveball I'm going to throw you, gentlemen, and the young lady.
Waiting for it.
I've heard a lot of comments about Williamson Medical Center. My experiences have been exceptional there. My primary care is Dr. Lieberman in Thompson Station. But I would like for y'all to comment on articles that are appearing in the paper about what some of our county commissioners are wanting to do with Williamson Medical Center, which is privatize it and sell it. And I'm concerned about that, and I hate to throw you a curveball since you're on the county television, but I would appreciate some comments around that issue. Thank you.
I think that's yours, Don.
I'm going to start, yeah.
No?
Yes, there's a lot of conversation that goes around, and honestly, this is not the first time the sale of the hospital has come up as a means to solve problems. It seems to be more frequent now than it was in the past, and I personally obviously am opposed to any conversation about selling the hospital. I think the county has a jewel in Williamson Medical Center. They have input into what occurs there through the hospital board. That group of men and women are from the community. Many of them are lifelong residents in the community, and they have their heart in the right place when it comes to Williamson County and healthcare and those sorts of things. You're not going to get that with a management group that comes out of Nashville or a management group that comes from some national organization. You're just not going to. And those are the likely to be the kinds of groups that would want to buy something, really. So it isn't a solution. It's a one-time, you sell it, it's gone, you've lost control. I don't think that's the right thing to do. As a citizen, I certainly would not vote for that. I work there, and so obviously I appear to be biased, at least, in favor of the hospital. But I just think it's the wrong thing to do.
I agree with you.
The only thing I would add is that, again, it may be a little more neutral, but it's just that it is up to the community. I think the community has spoken a couple times in particular on this issue. I guess as our president has said, who knew that healthcare could be so complex? But I mean, you have to get behind a lot more than just what you're going to see as potential monies coming in, because there's a whole lot of unintended consequences that will occur after that. Some of them may be good, some of them may be bad. You don't know, but you better think about it quite a bit. But the other thing I would say, and Don and I talked about this earlier, I hope that it can get put to bed soon, because it really does hurt the morale in the hospital. I mean, if you're an employee there and you don't know whether you're going to be sold or not, I mean, it gets a little bit hairy for you.
Well, it's certainly been a good thing for my family. We've had 3 boys born there, and just had great experiences there. I honestly learned a lot this morning, thinking that it was more of a profit and loss kind of deal. But my understanding is the hospital is making money, and that money would not stay in the county if it were a for-profit, and you all do plow that money back into the county. So it's profit. It's a beneficial thing to our county, and we appreciate it. I really thought we would. I ran out of things to ask, so we're not compelled to run the full hour, so we're not going to. And I just want to thank you all for coming and helping us kind of unravel the news and look at how our hospital fits into the county and how it benefits us. Craig, certainly appreciate your coming down to give us the 30,000-foot perspective, and hope that you will continue to help us understand those things from your position as well.
My hospital.
We appreciate all our audience being here. We will be back on the last Friday in July, and we look forward to having you then. We, as always, appreciate Vanderbilt, Christine Bradley, and Lynn Maddox for the financial support they offer to help make this show go on the air, and we look forward to continuing that. And hope you'll be back next month. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.